talking about race is forbidden unless it's in the terms that white people can accept, such as Tim Wise. I don't know if you've seen him or know about him. Now, he says he's white, and he also said he's racist. Now, he doesn't take, even though he's taken System of Racism from Neely Fuller and myself, he doesn't talk and carry it, the analysis, to the level of the fear of white genetic annihilation. And he has even characterized me and my work as pseudoscientific BS. Do you see what I'm saying? But he can be used by the system of racism as a white face that pretends to be interested in the elimination of racism. But if somebody was sincerely interested in eliminating racism, white supremacy, and there were black scholars or black people who were writing about it cogently, wouldn't that person respect those black people first and foremost?
There is within white supremacy the reluctance to do exactly that.
Exactly.
In the area of music, they always position themselves as being the cultural leaders, regardless of what instrument or type of singing that it might be. And
exactly.
They set themselves up to present awards, and we validate it by looking at these award shows from people who, this is me talking, they can't play the music as well as we, they can't dance as well as we, they can't write as well as we, but we look at those shows and say that so-and-so got this, so-and-so got that award, when all the while we, the spectators, are the originators of that which we're looking at.
You heard Ozzy Osbourne saying, you know, throughout his rock career, people bringing him bags of cocaine and stuff like that, just drugs. And then he, went to rehab, and then he discovered prescription drug pills. And, here's legal drugs. And, you know what I'm saying? So, what is that, Sharon Osbourne? Or is Ozzy acting black? Or, I don't know. He did say he was not comfortable in his own skin, and that's why he was doing the drugs or whatnot. So was he doing the drugs because he was uncomfortable being white and he wanted to be black? Is that why he was, engaging in such bad behavior? I don't know. Now, like I stated, that was from a while back. Then I found a clip that was just uploaded 2 days ago of Sharon Osbourne talking about Ozzy again. So here it is.
While we were all off and away, there were a number of conflicting tabloid reports about Sharon and Ozzy. Mrs. O is going to set the record straight. Take it away, Mrs.
Okay. Everything that was printed in the tabloids has been distorted. There's always a little seed of truth to everything that gets reported, but then it gets very distorted. The only thing that's true was the Facebook posting that my husband did on his Facebook, where he said he's been using alcohol and prescription drugs for the last year and a half, and that he's been and he's been in a very dark place. That's true. It's very true. Everybody knows he's been struggling with this his entire life, and I never knew that he was using prescription drugs. I knew he was drinking occasionally, but I didn't realize, to the extent. It's our business. We're dealing with it. We're not getting divorced. However, am I happy? No. Am I upset? Yes, I am. I'm devastated right now. It's a disease that not only hurts the person that has the disease, but it hurts the family. It hurts people who love you. And we're dealing with it.
Okay, that's enough. Now he's within the relapse. He's been hiding from you, that at least you say. I wonder how much attention you've been paying to your husband that you didn't know he was using prescription drugs again for a year and a half, abusing prescription drugs, abusing alcohol, and then you want to say, well, that's your business. Then what business is it of yours if Justin Bieber is getting high on whatever he's getting high on and engaging in bad, unconstructive behavior? How's that your business? But you don't want nobody talking about your husband and your problems with your husband. All right. But then you go to the media and you commenting on Kanye West and you commenting on Justin Bieber's problems and that he needs to realize that he's white and not black, And she mentioned that it's a disease. Yes, white supremacy is a disease. Racism, white supremacy is a disease. And it just doesn't affect the person with the disease. It affects those around them. Okay? So here she is spewing these racist white supremacy views in relation to Justin Bieber's bad behavior. Oh, he's acting black. He needs to realize that he's white. But here your husband is for most of his adult life. Okay, and from what we know, his career, we don't know what he was doing as a teenager. Oh, but he's been, abusing alcohol, abusing drugs, biting the heads off of bats and crazy crap like that. But you want to, generalize black people as if, we're all running around pissing in buckets and drinking scissor and smoking blunts and typical racism, white supremacy. And she has a talk show on CBS. I think it's called The Talk, and she is a co-host. And so, yeah, just like Don Lemon, nothing happened to him, nothing happened to her. She won't be punished. She hasn't even come out with an apology or even tried to explain herself. And other media outlets have mentioned, her racist comments and described it as being racist. But, she doesn't need to explain herself, and not that it's going to do any good to explain herself. It is what it is, okay? You think that black people act in a manner that is unconstructive, and white people shouldn't be acting like they're black people. I mean, that's just so crazy. I never heard Elvis Presley accused of acting black, even though he was going to black churches and learning their style and all this and that, and then learning how black people dance, and then getting up on stage and making a career out of imitating black people, but y'all view that as positive. So no, he's not acting black. He's acting white, even though, he based his whole routine off of observing the black community. We can go back to Chuck Berry, even the father of rock and roll, a black person. So, where all those rockers that came behind him acting black as well, including your husband following in the footsteps of Chuck Berry, in rock and roll. Because, yes, black people did start rock and roll. And, so where they at, it was Ozzy acting black, doing rock and roll. So, I mean, these people, man, they are insane. This is insanity, man. These people, we need to put them in therapy. We need to come up with some kind of therapy, not just for black people, but these white people as well. They need therapy. Cause white supremacy is a disease, and it does not just affect her, but it's affecting other people around her as well.
We've worked on quite a few shows together at Nathan Cummings and at Jazz at Lincoln Center, where we've put together 8 or 9 presentations that have to do with jazz for that space, and it's been a wonderful challenge for us to try to think, okay, jazz and its history, but how, if you're going to pinpoint the jazz, the politics that go with the music, what would you put on the walls then? And so it's really been exciting to try to say some of it is straightforward, where Nina Simone doesn't say, I wonder if this is politics or not. She says, Mississippi, goddamn. And so you can't miss that. Even when Nina's singing a spiritual like Cinnamon, in the middle of it, she's shouting power. So you can feel that she's thinking politics right through the sound of a church song. So sometimes it's obvious and sometimes it's oblique. But part of the question for us was, where are the politics when there are no words at all? And how is it somebody like Ellington, who in one of his interviews said you can say things on the trombone and the trumpet that you can't say straightforward in words because people, will come right after you that way. But Duke nonetheless said what he needed to say, sometimes with titles. Black, Brown, and Beige was a straightforward celebration of his people. He has a short piece in honor of Florence Mills called Black Beauty. To do that at that point in the 1930s was a revolutionary act. It was a great deal of fun to put the show together.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about Duke Ellington, one of the things I think about is how using the Cotton Club as the means for keeping a big band together to actually go ahead at the time, initially, of course, when the Cotton Club was segregated and African people could play and perform in the Cotton Club but couldn't sit in the audience initially. And he was able to use this segregated backdrop to develop this powerful cultural message, which on one level is ironic to say the least, but at the same time, it's so important that opportunity actually existed and that the Cotton Club, despite the fact that it was at that time what it was also the place which allowed Duke Ellington to begin to develop this particular vision.
Yeah, but what's funny is that the people in Duke's band would play at the Cotton Club, then run around the corner to the club where all the black people hang out, particularly the dancers, to find out what they thought about the music. So they're playing in the Cotton Club, but their critical criteria is coming from black people around the corner, not coming from the audience of the Cotton Club. It's funny you bring up the Cotton Club. The Cotton Club is where you get style in America. It's where all those gangster movie actors, Edward G. Robinson, James Cagney, that's where they learned how to dress. They're dressing like Duke Ellington's band, and we think of that as gangster dress. If you look at Al Capone, he didn't look like them. The style you see in the American movies is coming out of Duke's band. It's so funny when you just mix. Look at all the kind of labels, and then you end up with what really is happening. It's us enriching the culture again.
And it's fascinating that the Cotton Club is put together to celebrate a false idea of the land of cotton, of the Southland, where everything was beautiful, and also it's a place where ideas of Africa as exotic and primitive were trumpeted for the white-only audience. But then Ellington is turning that completely around and playing music with this other audience in mind. By the 50s and 60s, when he does a suite for Liberia and then later a suite for Senegal and Togo, one of the interviewers said, well, what made you want to do African music at this point in your career? And he said, well, I've been playing African music all my life. Mm-hmm. And although he hadn't been to Africa in the 1920s when he was doing this, he nonetheless was reaching through and using an African imaginary and a will to celebrate the homeland that transcended even all the foolishness that was right in front of his face.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically in the field of culture, we put on the center, we put on the core every type of African culture that we find here specifically, and also in the diaspora and on the continent. We have a very, very diverse culture from Africa here in Brazil, and today, basically, what we have is it's a growing movement, from people who are starting to listen to hip hop. But we also see a lot of people who are not, the music they do is not committed to the struggle. It's much more something, for having fun and for dancing and stuff like that. But still, we can find some people who are, resilient to this situation. We have a lot of friends. I have some friends here, and they work with the hip-hop movement here. and they have been basically in this struggle of